All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are tackling some of the biggest questions you can possibly ask. I'm talking about things like, what does it even mean to know something? Are we actually in control of our own lives? And maybe most importantly, how can we all think a little more clearly in this, incredibly complicated world? Let's get started. Okay, think about the last choice you made. Seriously, maybe it was something small like what you had for breakfast, or maybe it was a huge, life-altering decision. Whatever it was, it felt like you were in the driver's seat, right? Of course it did. But what if that feeling, that sense of control, is just an illusion? Now, this isn't just some late-night dorm room debate. This is a really deep puzzle that puts our gut feelings head-to-head with the fundamental laws of science. So first up, we're going to explore this ancient puzzle, but we're going to do it with a modern twist, through the lens of neuroscience. And you'll see exactly how our deep-seated feeling of freedom really clashes with a much colder kind of mechanical view of the universe. And right here, you can see the conflict laid out perfectly. On one side, you've got our lived experience, right? That powerful, intuitive feeling that we are the authors of our own stories, our own actions. But on the other side, well, there's this bedrock principle of science, that every single effect has a cause. Every event is just a domino falling because a previous one hit it. And if that's true for the whole universe, why would the atoms whizzing around in our brains be any different? This brings us to a huge concept called determinism. It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It's the theory that everything that happens, and I mean everything, including you deciding to watch this, is the unavoidable result of whatever came before it. Think of it like this. In a deterministic universe, if you could hit rewind on time and then press play again, everything would happen in the exact same way, every single time. There's just no room for spontaneous, uncaused choices. And this idea leads to a really cool, kind of mind-bending thought experiment. It's called Laplace's demon. So just imagine for a second a super intellect, a demon, that knows the precise location and momentum of every single particle in the universe. A crazy amount of data, right? Well, with that knowledge and the laws of physics, it could, in theory, predict the entire future with perfect accuracy. And that includes the choice you think you're freely making at this very moment. And look, this isn't just some abstract philosophical theory. Back in the 80s, an experiment by a scientist named Benjamin Libet looked at this directly. He had people just flick their wrist whenever they felt like it, and he monitored their brain activity. The results were, well, they were startling. He found that unconscious brain activity, this readiness potential, started building up a full 350 milliseconds before the person even felt the conscious urge to act, before they even knew they were going to do it. So let that sink in. If your brain is already getting ready for an action before you are consciously aware of your intention, who's really making the call here? Are you the driver, or are you just a passenger watching a movie of your life, experiencing this illusion of control? You see, to even start to unpack a question like that, we need a better set of tools. We have to ask an even more fundamental question. Okay, so to tackle a problem as massive as free will, we actually have to take a step back and ask something that sounds almost childishly simple. What does it even mean to know something? Anything, really. This, my friends, is the field of epistemology, and it's what gives us the framework we need to even begin to sort fact from fiction. You know, the classic definition of knowledge, and we're talking going all the way back to Plato, has three essential ingredients. It's not enough to just believe something, and it's not enough for something to just be true. To really rise to the level of knowledge, a belief has to be what philosophers call a justified true belief, or JTB for short. So let's break that down real quick. First, belief. Pretty straightforward. You have to actually accept the idea is true. Second, truth. The idea has to actually match up with reality. For example, if you believe the sky is green, well, you don't have knowledge because that belief is just plain false. But it's this third pillar, justification, that's the real game changer. You need to have good reasons for your belief. And this is absolutely the key. Justification is the engine of knowledge. It's what separates real knowledge from just a lucky guess. Think about it. If you randomly guessed the winning lottery numbers, you had a true belief, right? But you didn't know they were going to win because you had zero justification. You just got incredibly lucky. It's the quality of our reasons, our evidence, that elevates a simple opinion into something we can genuinely call knowledge. Okay, so how do we find good justification in the real world? This brings us to what I like to call science's secret weapon. Its relentless, non-stop process of scrutiny. It's a method built on this really fascinating, almost paradoxical idea. that the fastest way to get closer to the truth is to be constantly trying to prove yourself wrong. So check out this provocative question. If I write a book right now claiming that Harry Potter is actually God, why is that any less valid than, say, another sacred text? It's a really challenging question because it forces us to confront the idea that justification can't just come from tradition or because someone in authority said so. So what really makes a belief justified? And this slide really gets to the core difference. A scientific approach puts its claims out there in the open, ready for scrutiny. They can be tested, and, this is crucial, they can potentially be proven false. A dogmatic belief, on the other hand, well, it tends to rest on authority, and it makes claims that you can't really test. This is exactly why science evolves and corrects itself over time, while dogma often stays completely static, unchanging. This key principle has a name. It's called falsifiability. It was an idea put forward by the philosopher Karl Popper, and he argued that for any theory to even be considered scientific, there has to be some conceivable experiment, some observation out there that could prove it's false. If a claim is structured so that it can't be proven wrong under any circumstances, well, then it's not really playing the game of science. What this all means is that justification isn't some one-time stamp of approval you get. It's a living, breathing, ongoing process. You know, scientists once had totally justified beliefs that space was filled with a substance called ether. But then, new evidence came along and proved them wrong, and so our knowledge evolved. See, science's greatest strength isn't that it's always right, it's that it has a built-in ability to be corrected. All right, so we've got these powerful tools for thinking, justification, scrutiny, but what's holding them all up? What's the foundation? It turns out, whether you're a Nobel Prize-winning scientist or just trying to decide what to have for lunch, all good thinking rests on one non-negotiable bedrock. And that foundation is logic. Simple as that. It honestly doesn't matter what you're arguing about, from quantum physics to philosophy to which movie to watch tonight. If your argument isn't logical, it just falls apart. Logic provides the fundamental rules of the game for any coherent thought or discussion. These are like the invisible rules, the grammar of thought that we all use, often without even realizing it. A thing is what it is. It can't be raining and not raining in the same place at the same time. These aren't just opinions. They're the very structure of how reason works. A square circle is complete nonsense because it breaks these basic rules. Without this shared grammar, any real argument or communication just becomes impossible. And this really brings us full circle, doesn't it? The true purpose of education, of going to a university, isn't to tell you what to think or just to confirm the biases you already have. It's to give you the tools, justification, scrutiny, and logic, so you can learn how to think for yourself. It's all about becoming more informed, more balanced by actually examining ideas, not just blindly accepting them. So we're going to end with a question aimed directly at you. After exploring all these tools for seeking truth, from questioning something as basic as free will to demanding justification for our beliefs, which of your own deeply held beliefs are you willing to put under that same microscope? Because that willingness to scrutinize, to risk being wrong, that's the very beginning of real knowledge.